What is up, everyone? Thanks for being here. Welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you for the next little bit. Today, we are joined by my new pal, Mr. Danny Smart. I met Danny a couple weeks ago at Halo Recording Studio, working on a record for my cousin, who is also named Danny, funnily enough. I was really taken aback by this gentleman's work ethic and his attention to detail and excitement and vigor for the project. He was a great guy to work with. He obviously knew his stuff and seemed really dedicated to his craft. So I wanted to have him on to talk a little bit about what his experience is. We covered working as a musician on cruise ships, why having a strong work ethic almost always sets you apart from the pack, and why Danny chose to move to Canada over anywhere else to further his career as a musician and as a producer. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you do too. Thank you for tuning in, and welcome back. Here's Danny. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we are joined by my new pal, Mr. Danny Smart. Danny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So Danny, why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just kind of dive into what we're going to talk about today.
So, my name's Danny, of course, all the way from Yorkshire in England. And for years, for around 6 years, I was a solo guitar musician on cruise ships. And recently, just at the tail end of last year, I moved to Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and started working here at Halo Studio as the engineer, producer, and love it so far.
Nice, man. So, since you're new to Canada and new to Ontario, what are your first impressions of Hamilton? Because for anyone who doesn't live in Hamilton, most people consider Hamilton a pretty rough place.
Yeah,
do you feel that? Do you feel that way about it, or do you feel differently?
Well, I've seen all the memes, of course, online that everybody likes to share about Hamilton. But yeah, I think it's obviously rough around the edges, you know. But I think every place has its bad spots, and I always think there's always a difference between people who don't live in Hamilton commenting on Hamilton compared to the people that actually live in Hamilton and make up the community of Hamilton. There's a big difference. So yeah, I like it. It's like the diamond. It's like a rough diamond sort of thing, you know. I like it.
Yeah. So you kind of briefly mentioned this, but you're working and currently sitting in Halo Recording, which is in downtown Hamilton.
Yes.
I've been going there for a long time to do recordings. And I have this running joke with the guy who actually used to do your job, Andrew.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've run into him or not, but every time I would come to the studio and he'd assist me on a session, something weird would happen out front. Like some homeless guy would, be running down the street naked, or like something strange would happen. And every time I love to, I'll preface this with, I love to poke fun at Hamilton just because it's a fun thing to do. 100%. But every time I would come, Andrew would, something strange would happen. And then Andrew would be like, man, I swear this never happens here. So I haven't done it. But I want to make a shirt and I'll give you one as well that says, on the front, I swear this never happens here, and on the back, Hamilton, Ontario.
Yeah, I love it. I have a poster back home in the place. It was already there when I arrived to Canada, but it says something like, she said, "Take me somewhere dirty," so I took her to Hamilton or something, and I love that. That's my favorite. That's my favorite entry to Hamilton that I have for sure.
That's great. So tell me about cruise ships. How the heck did you fall into that?
So kind of by accident. So back in 2017, I was just finishing university, and I was starting. I did a few, trips from the UK to Europe, and just getting more interested in traveling. And I was in a 3-piece band at the time, and we were gigging all around kind of Yorkshire and parts of the UK. And I just kind of got the bug for traveling, and somebody that we were kind of in a band with for a few months had suddenly left this function band that we were with, and told us that he was going on a cruise ship. And I kind of didn't even think twice about it. And then somebody just mentioned, why don't we give it a try? So me and the guy who I used to play drums with, we decided to sign up to work on cruise ships. And it was our first time coming over this side of the world. Our first ship was out of Los Angeles. And I carried on for 6 years on my own, essentially. And it was a perfect combination of being a musician, getting paid for it, and traveling. So it seemed like the perfect job. It is the perfect job. I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, that's amazing. Have you ever watched the show Below Deck?
Yes, it's my favorite. It's my favorite.
It's your favorite? That's amazing.
Yeah,
My wife and I like to watch it too.
Love it.
Is it anything like Below Deck? Because as soon as you tell me that you're like working on a cruise ship and blah blah blah, my brain snaps to Below Deck.
Yeah, so it is. It's quite. So yachting is pretty different because it's a lot more kind of exclusive, close knit. There's only 6-7 people working together on a ship, but the whole kind of lifestyle of kind of working hard and playing hard is definitely a big part of it. It's you're kind of traveling the world, and you're essentially taking people on vacation whilst you're doing this. So all the while it is pretty similar to Below Deck, to be honest. Yeah.
So you probably did one or two things you shouldn't tell your mom about.
Maybe. She'll watch this, I'm sure, and find out. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but, it's great fun though.
So give me one good story from the cruise ship days, and maybe like one hardship that was associated with it, because every job has its pros and cons.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the amazing thing with when I was on cruise ships, it was just the fact of, it's kind of like, there's like the saying of like, it would be amazing to wake up somewhere different every day, but on a cruise ship, you literally are hopping from country to country or continent to continent, like between each cruise and stuff. And sometimes it's just that kind of you have to just take in for the moment. For example, I was in South America, and it's like we're at Rio de Janeiro, and it's the carnival, and it's a party going off around us, and sometimes it's just amazing that you're like, oh, I never actually thought I would get to where I am, and it's kind of amazing. But the hardship, it does come with a lot of hardships as well. It's not all just like partying your life away. The kind of lifestyle of living in such a small area, even if it's a small cabin and amongst a lot of people, and a lot of stuff is kind of out of your control when you're on a cruise ship. So sometimes everything from food to your living standards is out of your control. So I would say that is the toughest thing, that if you can't adapt to a new way of life, then it's probably not for you. But it also makes you adapt, for sure, yeah.
Sure, yeah. What did you eat?
Well, it's kind of like, there's a big thing of upstairs where all the passengers eat. The buffet is great, but when it's downstairs for the crew, the food is very, very hit and miss, and of course there's lots of cuisines, because we used to have like 57 different nationalities on board at any time, so there's a whole lot of cuisines going off. But I don't know. I just don't know what the excuse. It was St. Patrick's Day, of course, this weekend. I always remember last St. Patrick's Day or the one before that, there was kind of this mac and cheese that came out that was just kind of like illuminous green, and I was just like, how the hell have they made that illuminous green with food colouring, I hope? And just weird, man, just weird things like that are just like, you know what, I'll probably skip dinner today and wait for later.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds kind of gross.
yeah, definitely kind of, it's hit and miss, but sometimes, there's beautiful restaurants and stuff, and we got we got a chance to kind of go and eat at them at discounted rates and eat some good food every now and then. And also, like I say, that's another amazing thing of traveling around. You're able to experience different cuisines in different countries. So good mix of both. It's highs and lows for sure.
For sure. What's the coolest place you ever visited, do you think?
Well, I always say to people, for me, I enjoyed the most was between Argentina and Alaska, because Alaska is just the most stunning place I've ever been. It's just a mix of, beautiful landscape and wildlife, and just a great food, everything. But Argentina is just a great culture as well, and a good mix of everything from the beaches down to, the snow in Ushuaia right at the bottom. And I just loved it. Again, the food, the people and everything. It was great. Yeah. Argentina.
Yeah, that's awesome. How old were you when you started on the cruise ship?
So I just finished college, so I was 21, and I just finished, just before I came to Canada in September at the age of 27, So 21.
You're 21. What did you study in school?
I was music, Popular music was the name of the course, so it was kind of like a good 360 of music, everything from recording to performing to composing, so...
Yeah, nice. So you kind of landed yourself in recording then. What made you choose that over, the other things that you studied?
So I kind of, again, last 6 years performing, I've kind of always been interested in the recording side of things. And it's just something that I wanted to get more immersed in, kind of, learning more about audio engineering, learning more about producing, collaborating with other people I've not done before, and I've always been interested in how when you listen to music, what is it about the recording side of things that makes us fall in love with songs and music, and what brings something out of an artist that you probably don't realize as a regular listener, or even musicians sometimes don't realize how that kind of comes out of an artist when you're going to the recording process. And it's, I love it. It fascinates me. So, yeah.
And so were you recording back when you were in school, or is this something that you've kind of gotten into more recently?
So I've always kind of self-produced and done my own stuff. And back in school, there was recording modules and stuff. And but kind of only used to really produce my own projects essentially, and that I feel like that's always been a brick wall. So kind of just self-learning up until recently, and just trying to get better and better sort of thing. But I was doing a lot of self-producing. Like I've released some singles that I've produced myself and stuff. So, I was missing that collaboration part with other people, essentially.
Man, I didn't know you made your own music. What kind of music do you make?
So it's kind of a branch of country, I guess, country rock. So I absolutely love country music, always have done, and don't
even get me started on country music. We'll go forever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just love the stories it tells, and just the rawness of a lot of artists and stuff. So so country music is my thing. Very weird with this accent to do country music.
I was going to say, what does British country music sound like?
I don't know, actually. There's quite a scene building sort of thing for country music. And again, a lot of it's based off of what's coming out of Nashville a lot of the time. It's kind of, it's very kind of Nashville based. Whatever you hear on the radio, people are doing it in the UK too, because there's a small scene that's growing, and I think there's a big stigma of people attaching the connotation of like country music back to people, like, even though I love older country music, it's my favourite stuff, but kind of attaching it to like the whole line dancing era of country music and all that sort of thing. But I think a lot of it stretches out. We see people like Chris Stapleton doing amazing things with country music. So I think people are scared to like it is the problem back home. So,
Chris Stapleton was my gateway drug to country music. I grew up a little emo kid, and I hated country. When I was, 16, 17 years old, I was like, I'm going to play in a metal band. Metal's where it's at. Or like emo bands. I want to be in an emo band. And I played in punk rock bands. I played in an emo band that I really, really loved.
Totally.
And I was out on a fishing trip with a friend of mine, sitting on the back of a boat with a line in the water, and he put on Chris Stapleton. And I was like, shit,
Yeah, man,
This is
he's just got raw talent. I think that's it's every time I listen to him and his voice, and especially now, even though getting even more and more of an understanding of recording processes and stuff, and you just realise that there's not a whole lot going off on the recording side of Chris Stapleton's records. It's just raw talent that is coming out and being captured. It's amazing, really amazing.
Well, it's certainly not overproduced. I actually watched. I believe it's Vance Powell.
Yeah, it is.
Who did the From a Room records. I'm pretty sure that's his name. So I have memberships to both Pure Mix and Mix with the Masters.
Great, dude.
I try to keep myself fresh. And a few years back, I found myself in just producing music myself. I got into a real rut. And I was like, man, I just do the exact same thing every time. And I'm bored with myself. And I don't feel like I'm being creative anymore. So I got a membership to Pure Mix and I got a membership to Mix with the Masters. And I watched Vance. It's so funny. I watched Vance do a mix of Tennessee whiskey. I think that one's on Pure Mix. Yeah. And it was the funniest mix I've ever seen happen in my life.
Oh, really?
Because I mean, I do mixes all the time, and sometimes you get really great raw tracks, and you don't have to do too much in the mix, but this guy, what I'm getting at is those From a Room records, which are recorded live off the floor. And for the listeners who don't understand what that means, it means most modern recordings you hear, instruments are played one at a time. So the drummer will play, and then a guitarist will play, and then a bass player will play, and then another guitarist will play. It doesn't have to be in that particular order, but everyone plays separately, and it really helps the engineers isolate each sound and focus in on every little detail. When you record live off the floor, it's kind of like an old school way of doing things. You put everyone in one room with all of their instruments all at one time, and the band just plays the song. And it's harder to do studio tricks like fix vocals and stuff like that when you do it that way. You have to be really, really talented as a musician. So these records that we're talking about, they're done live off the floor. And not only are they done live off the floor, but so much of the sound of those records was defined in the studio during the recording. I kid you not. Vance pulls up Chris's vocal and he's like, he's listening to it, reaches for an EQ. He's like, just needs a little sparkle, like a little 15K, pushes the tiniest little bit of 15K into the vocal. Yeah. And that's how he printed the vocal on the mix. Whereas when I mix a vocal, it's I've got it in an EQ. I've got it in at least two compressors. I've got tape saturation on it. I've got all of these things. And he's like, just a little 15K, a little sparkle. Yeah, that's good. So it's for me as a producer, it's really fascinating to see how much of those records were defined in the studio, which I think is so neat.
Totally. There's an ad that keeps coming up all the time on Insta at the minute with Chris Lord Algie, who just says, I see all these sessions with loads of plugins on, and the first thing I do is take them all off, and then I say, oh, listen, it sounds more open, more punchy, more great, because again, especially working here at Halo and recording with some great bands, you just realize how important it is to get something right at the source. Is the best thing that you can do before even thinking about hitting it after the mix. Just totally get it right at the source, and I think that's where the magic is. It comes in. It really helps big time.
Absolutely. Chris Lord Algie also taught me, not personally, but he taught me the concept how I treat overheads, which I don't know if you remember me doing in the studio. Yeah. It was him who said it. He's like, when I think about EQing overheads, I don't care about the cymbals. Who cares about cymbals? He's like, I want the drum kit to sound good in the overheads.
100%.
So think about EQing the drum kit, not the cymbals, which I thought was super interesting. Yeah. I don't want to go too far down the nerd train
of course.
on recording, because this isn't a recording podcast, and we could get there so quickly, so easily.
100%.
You landed in Canada. Yeah. Why?
So it's something I've always just wanted to do. Well, I say always. A few years ago, again on cruise ships, I met a friend who was also from the UK, and he mentioned all about the opportunity while you're 18 to 30 to go on a working holiday visa in either Canada, Australia, New Zealand. There's a whole ton of countries you can do it in. Yeah, he mentioned it, and he said he'd done it, and he was a little bit older than me, and he said, "Oh, Danny, you should definitely do this." And I thought, "Oh, yeah, maybe I will." And anyway, the pandemic happened, and cruise ships kind of came back, and then I was kind of getting a bit fed up with cruise ships, and I was like, well, I'm 27 now, so if I don't do it soon, I'll miss that opportunity to give it a try. And yeah, I kind of looked into, like I say, New Zealand, Australia, or Canada was the choice. And yeah, I just know a lot more about the music scene in Canada than I do anything about the music scene going off over the other side of the world. And you guys are, of course, close to where it all happens in the US. And I've just always wanted to explore living in a different country. And as well, when I said the love of country music that I mentioned, there's a bigger pull for country music here than there is that side of the world, and that's my kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of all the deciding factors made me settle here in Canada for the minute.
That's kind of cool that in a way you chose Canada for the music. That's
Totally.
kind of fun.
Yeah, totally, 100%. You know, I think Canada, of course, puts out some great, and even since I got here, I learned so much more about a whole spectrum of Canadian music that I didn't even knew existed, and that's everything from kind of like, you know, classic Canadian 70s, 80s bands to new Canadian bands to a whole side of like East Coast music that I've totally discovered as well, which I never even knew existed. So,
dude, the East Coast has a cool thing going on. I think Canada is such a big nation, and I don't know how much opportunity you've had to travel around, if at all, within Canada. But it's a very diverse nation. What's going on the West Coast is entirely different than what's going on the East Coast, is entirely different than what's happening in Toronto or Winnipeg or Yellowknife, or, you know, it's so big. There's so many different pockets. I think out of the entire nation, the East Coast has the best and most Canadian culture.
Yeah, of course.
And the music out there and the people out there, I think it's just something special. I hope you get an opportunity to go see it. It's really, really incredible.
Yeah, I'd really love to. I've heard so many people talk about it and met friends from out over that way as well. And yeah, I'd love to. I mean, here in Hamilton, I had kind of, because I went more to the recording side of things, I wanted to keep my playing up a little bit. So just right around the corner, there's the Corktown, which is, for anybody who doesn't know, is an Irish bar here in Hamilton. And every Tuesday they have like an Irish jam night to keep, you know, and I thought to keep my playing up, it'd be great just to get somewhere regular to be able to keep playing. And yeah, the kind of exposure to kind of that East Coast like folk music has just been incredible, and again, a thing I'd never even realised existed before I came here, and really super talented musicians that come out of East Coast music, that side of things anyway as well. It's I'd love to check it out one day. It looks beautiful out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I highly recommend it. So remind me, how long have you been in Canada?
So we're in March now, so that's just around 6 months. Yeah, coming up to 7.
So Canada is a Commonwealth nation, and you come from the top of the Commonwealth. How do you see?
Some might call it that. Some might call it another thing. But
what do you mean? Elaborate.
I don't know. It's all subjective, I guess. To where the top of the Commonwealth, I guess, you know. I don't know. It's a strange one in modern times to call it the top of the Commonwealth, I guess.
Well, I think historically speaking, it seems to be that way to me, but
I suppose so. It's 100% historically. Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to make any like modern like claim on it or anything. Yeah. But what I'm curious about, they're both Commonwealth nations. How do you find? What are some of the ways you see Canada differ from England?
I would say, of course, the size is one thing. Is everything, infrastructure and everything seems a whole lot spread out, sort of thing, in terms of that. But yeah, in terms of culture, I don't know. I guess it's just a total different way of life, in Canada. I don't know if that comes down to a population difference between you guys having such a melting pot of great cultures that come together to try and make it work and make such a great country and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. It's just I come from small town in the UK is the thing. And I didn't really want to move to London. My experience with London's always been so just overpacked and too busy and expensive to live in. And yeah, I wanted to, again, when I came out here, I noticed for me, the biggest difference is just the music-wise, really. I just thought it leans more to the music that I kind of want to do. So, and again, I always wanted to work in the music business and keep working in the music business. So that's kind of that's the differences I notice more than everything. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to, again, I feel like even just being here 7 months or whatever, I've still not probably experienced much of Canadian living. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, respectfully, I feel like you got to get out of Hamilton to do that a little.
That's true. Yeah, people. Yeah, that's it. Once I get a bit more settled with a car, I'm hoping to try and see a bit of that. That side of things for sure.
Have you been down to the falls yet?
Yes, I have been to the falls. That's probably between that and just Toronto and the odd trip out at the minute. Because as I said, because I've just arrived, I'm not driving anywhere at the minute, and that's again the total difference. I think when I talk about the size is kind of getting around is totally different to the UK. You can be in a different town with a different city in the UK within 20 minutes sort of thing. Whereas that's just a trip to the store over here. So
yeah, it is way more compact over there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
Still comparing the UK to Canada.
Yeah.
Do you find? Sorry, what I wanted to say is.
Yeah.
You chose to bypass London for the purpose of because you found it was too busy. Too overcrowded. How do you feel about a city like Toronto? Because when I go to Toronto, I try to avoid Toronto like the plague. I hate going there.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's too busy and it's too crowded. Yeah. But I guess comparably, it would be a smaller city than London. So what is your experience of Toronto compared to London?
Yeah, so again, I've only kind of dipped into Toronto every now and then to visit some friends out there. But yeah, I would say the difference, and that's kind of why really I ended up in Hamilton, because I wanted kind of the in-between between the hustle and bustle of London and the opportunity that affords, of course, with people being there. And but also, again, coming from a small town, I do love my hometown back home for the fact that it's just kind of a small town, essentially. So I always felt like Hamilton was the nice in between of that and Toronto, but I've not really. Admittedly, apart from just heading over to see a friend and see the Space Needle thing, I have not really hit.
We here in Canada call that the CN Tower.
That's the one. It was something like that. It reminded me of Space Needle. Yeah, I knew it was something like that. But yeah, to be honest, Dak, I don't have a whole lot of experience with Toronto yet. So I probably need to get out more, I guess.
Count your blessings. It's awful there.
Good. I'm glad you said that.
But I have a biased opinion because I hate busy places.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Especially if you're living amongst it, it's kind of it affects everything in your life being so busy. And again, back to the cruise ship thing, of working when you're just kind of surrounded by 3,000 people on a ship constantly. You'd like to have your own space eventually. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I toured 6 months last year, and I've been touring for 13 years now.
Wow,
been touring
man.
for 13 years. And it's the same way. It's a smaller group. It's not thousands of people like a cruise ship.
Yeah.
But man, you get on a bus with, 14, 15, 16 other people sometimes.
Totally. And
then you do that for a month. or, a month and a half, it's
Yeah.
like, whew, I forget
Yeah.
what it's like to be alone. It's just
Totally. Totally, yeah.
Coming from a small town, as someone who doesn't like big places, how did you decide on, like, what made you decide Hamilton? And do you feel like you made a good choice, or do you find it too busy for you still?
No, so the thing is, people doing the visa that I'm on at the minute, there is a whole lot of information out there of how to research before you come and everything, and I wanted to really put that research into, try and hit right where I wanted to be. And essentially the primary reason for coming to Canada was to expand my audio engineering knowledge and be part of a music community, essentially. So before I came, I did a whole lot of research of the contribution between living in a place that's not too city like London, and also something that offers enough of opportunity and a music scene to be able to get involved with a music community sort of thing. And like I said, I totally took a chance over Hamilton. I'd never been to Hamilton, never seen Hamilton before I arrived. I don't regret it one bit. I love it. Like I say, I think obviously it has its rough spots, hopefully it's getting the investment that it needs to kind of, pick up a little bit and hopefully attract some, change the reputation of that it has for the minute. But I love it. I think the people are great, and it's afforded me to be working in this great studio here at Halo. So yeah.
Yeah, Halo's amazing.
Yeah.
Here's a question that's interesting to me. So we don't know each other very well, but you immediately struck me, and you continue to strike me as someone who's very dedicated to everything, you kind of put your hand to. Example would be when you were researching where you wanted to come in Canada, you really wanted to get it right, and you put in a lot of research into that. When we worked together at Halo in the studio, you were very on point and committed to detail, and were very involved in making sure everything that I was trying to make happened. And not everyone is like that. Where does that drive and determination come from?
Probably, I have to say it's just from my parents, I guess. Yeah, it's big time. Always been instilled into me to kind of work hard to get where you want and what you want to do. Definitely comes from mum and dad, which I have to thank them for that, 100%. Just kind of like always seeing, I guess, people just doubting what, it's the old thing of every musician or anybody in this kind of industry, creative industry, that people always, they expect you to kind of give up, essentially, and be like, oh, get a real job sort of thing. I guess it's just always, I always wanted to prove the maths teacher wrong that always said that I was an idiot for playing music and I'll never do anything because I wasn't interested too much in maths, really. So there's part of that. But it's a drive and determination to always be, the best I can be. And again, people like yourself, coming to the studio, Zach, I learned as much from you and stuff as I like to help you guys out. So it just comes from wanting to be the best I can be, and again, like just the way I was raised, I guess, small town raising,
I like that. Did you also, like me, struggle with math in school?
Yeah, man. My school report every time it used to always be great. Everything. Well, the performance side, creative stuff was good, and then English or whatever was good too. But maths was always like, oh, there's an issue with maths. I don't know if it was the teacher. I don't know if it was. I don't know if it was a subject, but I just found it so boring. But it was kind of the teacher lecturing us about how you just you can't do anything but be a maths teacher probably. So I wanted to prove him wrong 100%.
I feel like maybe you found that math was boring because math is boring.
Yes, exactly, Zach. Exactly. Honesty is the best policy for sure.
Absolutely. I had the worst experience with math in high school.
Oh, really?
So you probably don't know this about me, but I grew up, when I was a kid, I was homeschooled. My mom taught me everything.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. And, but then I went to high school. I don't know how the schooling system works in the UK, but I would have gone to high school at 14 years old.
Yeah.
And did 4 years there. And in grade 9, I did really, really well in math. So my first year in high school, I did really well in math. I got an 89. And then in grade 10, I was working pretty much a full-time job, playing on the hockey team and going to school. And I don't know why I did this, but I got myself into doing a lot of closing shifts at the restaurant I was working at. So I was staying at the restaurant until sometimes, like on a Thursday night when it was getting busy for the weekend, everyone was in for their Thirsty Thursday or whatever. I would sometimes be there on a school night till 12, 11, like 11, 12, sometimes even 1 in the morning if it was a really bad night. And then I'd get up at, 5 in the morning to go to a hockey practice, then go to school and then go back to work. So I burnt myself out and I got really, really sick and I missed 2 weeks of school in grade 10, my second year. And I missed the trigonometry, or at least a large portion of the trigonometry unit in my math class. And when I came back, my teacher promptly informed me that it was my fault that I had missed the class and she didn't care that I was sick. And she made me write the trigonometry test without any notes or any additional days to study, having not even been there to do the unit. And I didn't have the emotional maturity to not stop caring about math immediately. And so I did. So from that day forward, I guess I was never very good at math. But
that's all it takes.
You don't need math for everything,
No, you don't. You use it in your own way. You use it in your own way. I get that sometimes it's important for what you use, but a good mentor with stuff like that is always the best. It's always the best thing for sure. Yeah. And you're doing good, Zach. You're doing great, of course.
Oh, so well, thank you.
We're proving them all wrong. All those math teachers, we're proving them all wrong.
Take that, math teachers. Exactly. Let math teachers everywhere know. So you've been in Canada like 6-7 months. Do you have like a back end planned, or are you just kind of riding it out and seeing where it goes?
So a mix of both. I would love to stay here. Just again on this visa, I kind of read everywhere that there is some nightmare stories of people coming and not being able to settle here in Canada. Personally, and not getting along with the way of life and stuff. But yeah, for me, everything's kind of strange. I don't know how. It just kind of drops nicely in place of how I want to do and keep, committing to getting better at everything I'm doing, sort of thing. So yeah, long term, I would love to be able to stay if the government lets me, hopefully. I'd love to stay because it's kind of feeling a lot more like home every single day. So it'd be a shame to be building up all this kind of work and stuff like that to just have to leave it all. So I'm hoping the long term would be to settle here. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. What do you hope to accomplish, over the next 6 months to a year here in Canada? Like, what are your goals?
So I guess short term is kind of just getting again, like I say, coming from producing my own music, I've just got a ton of ideas that I kind of just want to get out there and work on a lot more with and do. Be able to just finish some projects. And again, I just want to collaborate with people. Also get back into releasing my own music as well, because I've not done it now for a few years. And kind of get a bit more consistent, get back into being a bit of an artist maybe. Collaborate. I wanted to come here again, as I said, to collaborate. And I think everybody can learn something from everybody, no matter where you are in what stage of your career or what stage, or what that person's offering is, I'm a big believer, everybody starts somewhere and nobody's better than you or not better than you just because of whatever, It's like somebody who's had 30 more years experience than me is going to be a better producer than me. But I think,
maybe.
Maybe, you never know. You never know. But yeah, I think, I'm just really interested in learning and getting, collaborating and learning at the minute, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I got one more kind of thing I want to cover, and then we'll wrap this up. Do you miss home? Like, what is it about you that just loves getting around so much? And what do your family and friends back home think of that?
Yeah, so of course I do miss home. Yeah, I do miss. I think after doing cruise ships for a few years, you kind of get used to being a traveller, travelling around a bit, and again back to, I owe everything to mum and dad for sure. And but they've always said, as much as it's always great to be around and see them, there's a world out there to see, and experience and do. So I do miss them, but they're very, very supportive of me starting a new life out here in Canada. And another reason, a pure reason, back when they were growing up, opportunities like this weren't afforded to them. So they're a big believer of take whatever opportunity you can. It's kind of like the sacrifice, I guess, you make to kind of experience something as cool as living in another country and meeting other people, is that kind of you have that distance, but luckily I believe we live in a great time where, just as we're doing this now, you can hop on a computer, see each other's face, and have a chat, and catch up and stuff. So yeah, it's strange. It takes time to get used to, especially because I think that's I did a vlog a couple of weeks ago talking all about basically the hardest thing that probably people don't talk about when you do something like this is probably loneliness when you do move to a new country, because you don't know. Like I said, I didn't know anybody in Hamilton at all, and it's kind of, you've got to just get yourself out there and get to know people and meet people, or you'll just end up driving yourself crazy. So it takes some getting used to, but yeah.
That makes sense, man. Well, thanks for joining us today, dude.
No, thank you, Zach. Thanks for asking me.
We're lucky to have you on the podcast. We're lucky to have you at Halo, and we're lucky to have you in Canada. So
thank you,
I appreciate you being here, and I wish you all the best, and I hope our paths get to cross again soon.
100% they will, I'm sure. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.